Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the Washington Democratic Party chair sticks up for the people who had their visas revoked at the University of Washington, possibly for supporting terrorism. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
Into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I'm a visual guy, I'm a movie guy, and I love all the people out there who are now claiming to be economic experts, who were medical experts, and were political experts, and, well, they're not really experts on any of that because odds are most of them probably majored in underwater dance theory at college, if they even had a pool. So a lot of people have a lot of bad takes on what happened today. And a lot of people have a lot of partisan attacks on what happened today. And I don't think most of them are correct. I'm going to try and do this as objectively as possible, but I'm going to give you a visual aid for what happened with the tariffs and what happened with the stock market. I assume most people in this audience have seen Top Gun Maverick. For those of you who haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, let's go to the beginning of the movie. So you finish the aircraft carrier opening. And what happens is you find Tom Cruise, you find Maverick living in an airplane hangar with his antique World War II airplane, his motorcycle collection, and you find out he's a test pilot for a new project called Dark Star. He goes to the military base, and he's expecting that day they're going to be trying to do Mach 8 because they're trying to do a Mach 10 threshold. And then what happens is they've been working. This week we do this threshold analysis, and then this week we do that threshold analysis till we get faster and faster and faster. So what happens is he gets there and finds out that the general, the Admiral Kane, has shut down the program and told them not to do it because he wants funding for his drone program. So what happens? They decide to go forward with it anyway to hit Mach 10, which they haven't hit yet. And there's this big drama where the Admiral is pulling up at the exact same time he's taking off. And he goes and he's flying high. Talk to me, Goose. And he got that beautiful above the world view. He's in his spacesuit. He's in his experimental prototype airplane. And he hits Mach 10. And you remember his friend Hondo says to him before he takes off, now, Maverick, the contract is Mach 10, not 10.1, not 10.2, not 10.3, Mach 10. I don't like that look, Mav. That's the only one I got. You remember all this? So what happens? He hits Mach 10, and the whole room cheers and gets excited and gets happy. And then Hondo goes, oh, don't do it. Oh, don't do it. And then he goes, well, just a little push, just a little bit more. And Tom Cruise goes for 10.1, 10.2, and then he keeps pushing it till the plane explodes, and he ends up in that diner and has to walk back. Now, was the mission a success? Yeah, but you blew up the airplane. Now, Admiral Kane says to him, all you did was save those jobs of those men out there. That's not a small deal. You saved people who are trying to make a living. You saved people who have an assignment. No, that's a real thing. You did that. But you blew up the airplane. Now, what the hell is Hoffman talking about? Why do I use the Top Gun Maverick analogy with regard to what happened on the stock market today? Donald Trump putting in a 90-day pause on the tariffs of all these countries, if he had done this on Thursday, if he had done this on Friday, if he had done this on Monday, if he had done this any day before today, I'd say maybe Monday. If he had done it yesterday, he still would have the same thing. If he had done this anytime last week, you would have had Donald Trump as the most brilliant person. Donald Trump is incredible. Donald Trump understands the market. Everybody bowed to Donald Trump. That's what you would have had. But instead today, you're getting a different kind of spin. Donald Trump did it because of how bad the stock market tanked. Donald Trump did it because these other countries don't want to make deals. You're hearing all the spin. But no, let's go through the wins and let's go through the losses. Did we get over $7 trillion in investment in American jobs, American economy, companies coming here? 1,000%. Did over 70 countries say to the U.S., we want to make trade deals? Yes. Did China say no? Has China now been placed on its own island outside the rest of the world? Absolutely. I think where the miscalculation was that as soon as those countries contacted Donald Trump and said, we want to make trade deals, it should have been like, we're going to pause the tariffs on Israel. We're going to pause the tariffs on Vietnam. We're going to pause the tariffs on Japan. So I think if you had announced each of those as it happened, the markets would have reacted a little bit better. Not totally better, but a little bit better than what they did, and you could see there was a plan. The problem was yesterday I had to do my whole analysis about what I thought the plan was because the White House, who are really good communicators, were not being 100% clear about the plan because you don't negotiate in public. The Biden administration would always talk about what they were negotiating, and it backfired horribly. For example, anytime you would talk about negotiations with Hamas, Hamas would say, this is who we're negotiating with, we're going to push harder, and you're not going to get what you want. Donald Trump knows this. There is the art of the deal, and a lot of people forget that Donald Trump is very, very good at this. Scott Bassett actually said this today when they were announcing the 90-day pause on tariffs.
If I could just add to what the secretary said, many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great courage, as the secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China even higher.
Now, Caroline Leavitt is 1,000% correct in everything she said. All these countries want to make trade deals. They know Donald Trump's serious. But the problem was he should have said, oh, I'm going to pause them on these guys. So, for example, when Israel and Vietnam said before he unveiled all the tariffs and said, here's my giant list, which why didn't they put it in alphabetical order? Immediately should have been, Israel, we're going to pause this. Bibi's coming in next week. We're going to pause this for now. China, you're still screwed. Japan, okay, we don't want to screw up the Nikkei index, which took a massive tumble over the weekend. It's been a disaster for them, but they said they wanted to make a deal. So the problem is we're harming the people who wanted to make a deal with us. I understand it's not a perfect deal, but you could have said at least we're going to pause those. Now I understand there is the opportunity for abuse where countries will say, well, I got a 90-day pause. Let's figure out our game plan. And Donald Trump pushes hard, pushes hard, pushes hard. But the bigger problem is most people don't understand any of this. What really caused the problem yesterday, and yesterday I was talking about how Donald Trump knows the debt negotiations are coming up, and he wanted to drive down the debt, and he wanted to drive down the gas prices, and he wanted to drive down the egg prices, and he wanted to drive down the oil prices, and he wanted to drive down all the inflation. He succeeded in a whole bunch of that. But the problem was as soon as people started selling off their U.S. bonds, as soon as people started selling off the U.S. debt, now you got a massive problem. Because people didn't want to do business with us. You may have pushed a little too hard. I don't think you blew up the airplane. I think a lot of good will come out of this. But you have a perception problem. And the perception problem is most people don't understand any of this. I have a cursory knowledge. I have an upper atmosphere knowledge, shall we say, to keep with the Top Gun analogy, of the stock market. I do not consider myself a financial expert, and I went to business school. My specialty was marketing. My specialty was management. That's what I did in business school. Numbers, not my thing. I had to learn about all this. Most people, what do they know about the stock market? They know it goes up. They know it goes down. They know I buy a little stock in Disney because I like Disney or whatever it is, or I got some mutual funds for my kids, or I got a 401k. Most people just hear what they hear coming out of the news. So what happens is when the stock market starts going down, they may not even have any money in it. But a lot of people say, you know what? I'm a little nervous about this economy. So I'm going to keep my money to myself. I'm not going to spend the money on that vacation I had planned. I'm not going to buy that new car I was planning to buy because I might need my money for later. I don't know where the economy is going. And when people start holding back their money, that's one of the things that can lead to a recession. Now, what's fascinating to me is the media loves to cover like all of a sudden there's going to be a recession under Donald Trump when they never called out how we were sitting in a recession under Joe Biden. They came up with other words to use other than recession, but that's exactly what it was. They kept hanging on by their fingernails to, well, the unemployment is still low and the jobs are going up, so we're not technically in a recession. But then every month, the Biden people would start revising those employment numbers down. And I said, well, then if you're doing that, you're lying and we're actually in a recession. But the problem is most people don't understand this. And they say, I want to hold on to my money. And if they're holding on to their money, they're not investing it in the stock market. They're not investing it in the American economy. They're not buying bonds. They're not buying any of this stuff. And there's a perception that the economy isn't doing well, even though gas prices are going down, even though inflation is going down. And what started going down also? Donald Trump's approval numbers. Now, I don't think Donald Trump actually cares about his approval numbers. But at the same time, they do care about 2026. They do care about 2028. And a lot of representatives were getting calls because I was getting calls. I was getting calls from family members going, I love Donald Trump, but do you have any idea how much money I lost in the past few days? I love Donald Trump, but, what's the plan here? And these are people who understand how the market works. They said, I think I see how this is going. I think I see it, but I'm just playing it safe right now. And when there's uncertainty, that's when you have a real problem. Now, I think that was a very objective analysis of the situation. You might disagree with me. Do you think this was a win, or do you think this was a loss for Donald Trump? I say you saved the program, you hit Mach 10, but you blew up the airplane. You survived. Does that mean the project's dead? Does that mean Iceman has to come save you and ship you off to Top Gun? I don't think he really blew up the airplane. I think what it was, he pushed it a little too hard and the program's not going to go anymore. But I think you accomplished a bunch of goals. 1, you isolated China. 2, you have American manufacturing coming back. 3, you drove down inflation, you drove down gas prices, you drove down prices on a whole bunch of other stuff. I think you're talking about 5 or 6 wins, and you're talking about 2 problems. 1, a perception problem, and 2, an economic problem where there are very real people who lost very real money during all this. Let me know what you think. Do you think this was a net positive for Donald Trump? A net negative? Do you think it was a net win or a net loss? Give us a call or a text, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Donald Trump had a lot of things to say today about why he did this. And what's interesting is people never called out the Democrats when they used to say these things. They never, ever called out the Democrats. Remember what Nancy Pelosi used to say about all this? At least Caroline Leavitt was calling her out for all this.
I do just want to point out one thing, that the president, everybody in Washington, whether they want to admit it or not, knows that this president is right when it comes to tariffs and when it comes to trade. In fact, Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, how far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo? Those are the words of Nancy Pelosi in 1996. Well, President Trump is finally answering her call 27 years later, Nancy Pelosi can thank President Trump today for the 104% retaliatory tariff that will be going into effect on China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying these are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. The administration needs to move beyond words, take action now to reverse a trend that threatens our prospects for future economic growth. And Chuck Schumer said that in 2007. Finally, in 2025, President Trump is taking action. Recently defeated Democrat Sherrod Brown said on deficits in 2012 that our deficit then at China had reached an all-time high, and it was on pace to recede last year's record. The trade deficit had cost American workers millions of jobs at the time. These are the words of Democrats years ago. It is about time America finally has a president who is taking action to restore those millions of jobs back to the United States of America, to boost our manufacturing industry. He's doing what's right for the American people. It will take a lot of labor. It will take a lot of effort. But that's exactly what the American people elected this president to do.
Now, she's 100% right. The Democrats were never going to be happy with anything Donald Trump did. But the problem you have is a lot of Trump supporters. Bill Ackman was out there today saying, yeah, I love him and I knew he was going to do this. But the problem was when all these countries agreed, then all of a sudden you should have said, okay, we're taking the tariff off this country, this one, and it wouldn't have been as painful. He admitted you have to destroy to create 1,000%. The Democrats were never going to like this, even though it was their idea. It's amazing how quickly they flip on tariffs, even though tariffs are typically a lefty policy. But it's the average American who started having a perception problem because they don't understand what was going on. And it was affecting their finances. So that's when all of a sudden you got to ask yourself, how far do we keep pushing? On the Warrior Injury Law text line, the 360 says it was a net win for me. People need to learn how to hedge their investment with options. But yeah, I agree with you, 360, but you're only agreeing with me. Lots of people don't know this stuff. That's an education problem. Put it this way, what are we teaching people in schools? What are we teaching kids in schools? Here's gender theory, and I'm not talking about kindergarten. I'm talking about college and high school. Any of them know how to write a check? Any of them know how to balance a checkbook? Anybody use checks anymore? Anybody know how to use Quicken or QuickBooks or any of that kind of stuff? Do they teach you any financial advice? No. Some kid goes, oh, well, I get a cheaper credit card by signing up with this. I'll just sink myself into debt. Free money. Woohoo! To buy TVs and Xboxes and video games. They have no idea what any of this means. And that plays into the problem. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Bill in Maple Valley. Bill, what's up?
Is this talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you. What's up, man?
That's Joe from Maple Valley, the guy that gave you a scone once.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. What's going on, man?
So you know what money is, right? I'm going to ask you that question because I got an answer.
Well, the question is, it's supposed to be currency backed by something. And we could get into the gold standard discussion if you want to do that, or whatever standard we're using. That's a whole complicated thing. And right now, most people don't even understand what money is because most people don't use cash, and most people just see everything digitally right now.
It's supposed to be an exchange for labor and goods.
Yes.
Every nation from the great nations, the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, when they've either went off the gold standard or messed it up, they have collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
They went by the boards.
Yep, and you look at what's going on right now. I hear your point. I hear exactly what you're saying. And a lot of people have been DMing me things like that the past couple of days. I've been hearing a lot of that. And essentially, also, you're investing in a whole bunch of things that don't have any worth. It's just the assumption of worth behind a lot of these companies.
One more thing. When you rub money together to make money, that also destroys the civilization.
It also destroys the money. If you rub paper together, you get fire. Isn't that the case? Appreciate the call. Appreciate the scone. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Chris in Tacoma. Chris, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, thank you. Hey, quick thing. I think the most elegant definition is a storage system for human energy regarding money. But
you mean like the Matrix? You want us all to be batteries?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, I think Trump offered us an unbelievable, bifurcation. In other words, I think he's saving the country but he also created all these buying opportunities. Amazing, all in one fell swoop. That man is talented. And I checked with one of my friends who's an inner circle Warren Buffett guy.
Mm-hmm.
He thought I was calling him to, talk me off the cliff. I said, no. Do you agree with my analysis? This is like, I can't wait to take every spare penny I have and go buy stocks and whatever. And he goes, yeah, I didn't think you'd say that. Well, I'm saying it.
Yeah.
And I did it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
That's what a lot of people
the
are
other
doing
thing,
right
Ari,
now. A lot of people are doing that.
Your guy was talking about, educate, people don't know anything. I agree. What I do is I take every little tiny crevice I can get in something. I was making a reservation at a restaurant, and the young lady goes, hey, are you celebrating anything? And I said, yeah, Trump's tariffs. She looks, what? And I said, yeah, and that's my opportunity to educate people out in the field that you'd otherwise never be able to talk to. Just look for every opportunity to talk to your whoever.
That's what I do all the time. I do that 3 hours a day, my friend, and on social media when I'm not here. I completely agree. That's excellent advice, Chris. Appreciate the input. Appreciate you being part of the show. We go over to the Warrior Injury Law text line. Paul in Federal Way says, Ari, if they haven't sold anything, they haven't lost anything. 100% correct. He says, I do think Trump and team need to do a better job of educating the public. The Republicans also need to counter all the lies the Dems spew, and that's a lot. Yep. Becky in Enumclaw says, Ari, I just heard the tail end about what you thought we were doing with Donald Trump, and the way the markets are going is exactly what I expected. I'm not shocked. We did end on a high note today. I think he is doing a good job. I still stand beside him. It's a wait and see. He's handed a mess from the Biden administration. I think he is doing great, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the year goes. I think we are so fortunate to have him. John in Lakewood says it's a net win. Biggest one-day market increase in 5 years. Size of relief all around. Trump is great at course correction and will do it. That's from John. This one here from the 360, the stock market has been bloated for a long time. It needed the correction. From the 425, this is a win. I just checked my investments and already got back of half of what I lost. You agree, you disagree. You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. 5757. When we come back, my friends, was it a win or a loss when the head of the Washington Democrats decided to defend all those students who got their visas revoked? We'll give you the insane political story behind that. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Yesterday, we found out that 9 Universities of Washington students and graduates had their student visas revoked. Now we are finding out that in addition to them, 2 students at Gonzaga University also had their visas revoked, as well as a graduate of Washington State University and 3 recent graduates of Seattle University. Problem is, we still don't know why these visas were revoked. But Shasti Conrad immediately, she's the head of the Washington Democratic Party, she immediately jumps over to defend them. What did she say in a statement? She said today's actions by the Trump administration stripping visas from international students at the University of Washington without warning or cause pose insurmountable barriers to the education of these students and the academic community at one of our nation's foremost research institutions. Well, number one, FAFO. That's number one. But number 2, which is the thing that I keep saying again and again, an American education is a privilege, not a right. She called the moves cruel and wrong, adding, I applauded the University of Washington for offering these students legal and mental health resources and call upon our elected leaders to do everything possible to protect these students and ensure they receive the due process they are entitled to under the U.S. Constitution. Cruel and wrong, you say, huh? How about what happened on campus last year to the Jewish students, to the Jewish faculty members, to the Christian students who stood up for Israel, to all the vandalism, to all the students that were just trying to live their lives and study? Because I went back and checked your statements, and you didn't say anything at all about any of that. And a lot of those kids are U.S. citizens. In fact, I went back and I remembered you had said something about the encampment, and this is the only thing I could find. She called the violent Gaza camp at UW peaceful, while opposing any actions that would violate campers' First Amendment rights. What about free exercise of religion? What about freedom of speech? What about freedom to go to your classroom and not be attacked by a bunch of lunatics who support Hamas? Last year, Conrad presided over a party state assembly passing an anti-Israel resolution condemning the Jewish state for its disproportionate response to the October 7th Hamas massacre and calling for funds to be reinstated to the United Nations Relief and Workers Agency for Palestine Refugees, otherwise known as UNRWA, that lost funding from multiple governments after it was revealed that their employees participated in the atrocities, and that became part of the Democratic Party platform. The Democrats are always on the side of violence. Look at Chuck Schumer and crew, encouraging people to go torch Teslas and such. It's insane. Absolutely insane. Now, there are some clarifications to the story we did yesterday. If you remember, University of Washington said in a statement yesterday, they were talking about how they want to make sure students had the ability to learn and teach. And I said, wait, teach? Are you saying that some of these people who lost their visas were faculty members? University of Washington spokesperson said none of them were faculty members, but qualified the statement by adding those 2 sentences were referring to international students and scholars in general, not specifically the 9 in question. Why'd you include it in the statement then? Why'd you put it in the statement? The question is, do you believe them or not? If you won't tell us who these people are, we all still have questions about why they got the visas revoked. I guarantee you, if we had a list of names of who these graduate students were, of who these students were, and they're all over 18, by the way, if we had a list of who they were, we would find out in 2 seconds, likely, why they got the visas revoked, and we'd find out. I do love the Seattle Times desperately trying to do spin on all this, bringing up the stories about the people who had their visas revoked who were in this country or been arrested. One of them had a track record of bank embezzlement. I'm sorry, I don't feel bad for the person who had the bank embezzlement issue. This, being here in this country, getting an American education is a privilege, not a right. Yeah, the other thing they got a little testy about was that their discussion and Shasti Conrad's discussion of them providing legal and mental health services, as we said yesterday, they have the student legal services, which are paid for by student fees and donations, but is available to all students, noting that students levy these fees on themselves. However, this legal institution has office space in the Husky Union building. utilizes some campus-provided technology and IT support similar to other student fee-funded programs, which means they don't have to pay for those things because the university is paying for those things. So you are, in a sense, underwriting what they are doing. You're giving them free office space. Just like, for example, if a law firm was getting free office space, you are underwriting them. You are giving it to them. You are giving them the IT support. You are giving them the technology support, just like any other group on campus. So when Shasti Conrad says thank you for providing all that, I don't see them calling out her and claiming it's fake news, and she put it in the Democrats' statement, which hasn't been revised yet at this point. I'm just wondering who these kids actually are. I'm wondering who these graduate students actually are. And here's something else. I noticed in the past when we found some of the Hamasniks, a bunch of them were TAs, teaching assistants. Do they count as members of the faculty or not? Do you consider them students? Because putting in your statement, those who come here to teach, sends everybody down the wrong rabbit hole. And you should be wondering if you should be revising your statement, UW, or is there a reason you put that in the first place? I have many questions. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, Trump administration needs to stay away from some of these dumb fights. They are entertaining, but in the end of the day, they're not actually winning hearts and minds. We'll tell you about the latest when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Just a quick reminder, my friends, coming up at 4 o'clock is your chance to be part of the golden age of America. And I know everybody's sitting pretty on the money they made in the stock market today, but why not get a little bit more and invest that into the market? Now, switching gears over to what's going on in the swamp of D.C. for a second here. There are fights worth having. There are fights that are not worth having. And there are fights that are funny that either accomplish something or don't accomplish something. So a federal judge has sided with the Associated Press after the Trump White House blocked the outlet from media events for refusing to use the term Gulf of America instead of Gulf of Mexico. In a new ruling, Judge Trevor McFadden granted an injunction calling the administration's move blatant viewpoint discrimination, saying it violated the First Amendment. Now, I don't really believe this. I actually think it's going to get overturned because the problem is here, you don't get the access to the president in the Oval Office just because you say you're a media outlet, just because you are a media outlet. There are space constraints. There are logistical problems. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But I think the Trump administration's move here was, it's funny to rag on the Associated Press. It's funny to say, well, if you're not calling it Gulf of America, we got a problem there. It's also a legit argument to make where you say, hey, if you're not going to report facts, then we don't trust your reporting on anything. These are all legit. These are all legit things to say. But was it worth the fight? Was it really worth the fight? So here's an example. All right. Was it worth the fight in the Washington legislature for the Democrats to say we're banning Brandy Cruz and Jonathan Cho? Of course not. Was it worth the fight to say they're not journalists because we don't like their coverage? Of course not. And guess what? Found out today that actually the Democrats caved, and guess who has press passes now? Brandy Cruz and Jonathan Cho, which means, oh, I can finally get my press pass. So congratulations to them. Thanks for winning today. Thanks for threatening the lawsuit. I will say is with regards to the Trump administration, you know what I think their mistake was? They wanted the trolling moment. It makes MAGA happy. It makes all of us laugh. But did it get you anything? No, it was a legal fight you didn't have to have and a fight you didn't necessarily want. Maybe you did want it. Maybe you wanted the argument, which is, hey, Associated Press doesn't report the facts. But you know what the problem is? I've made this argument 100 times. We weren't having that argument. Instead, we got bogged down into who are you to decide what a journalist is, and we're having it from the other perspective. Now we're on the wrong side. What do I say about the Associated Press all the time? If you want to know how biased the Associated Press is, watch on election night. Associated Press's big claim to fame is we're nonpartisan. We just report the news. And we're a wire service, so just take the facts from us and put them on your website. That is not true at all. For example, the Associated Press had reporters that were embedded with Hamas because they said, oh, well, they live in Gaza. We trust them. They were participating in October 7th. Oh, I should say allegedly participating. Yeah, we know that. In fact, some of them won a photography award for the pictures they took of the atrocities on October 7th because they were embedded with Hamas. The Associated Press on election nights, you can always tell whose side they're on. Why? Democrat so-and-so won in the whatever district of whatever state. If a Republican wins, MAGA endorsing, Donald Trump supporting, election denying, whoever. They did that to Joe Kent. They did that to Joe Kent all the time. I would watch how they report it. MAGA, anything, they would include it wherever they could. The Associated Press is very, very biased. But that wasn't the argument we were having. The argument we were having was, what is a journalist? Who is the White House to decide who's a journalist, who's not? I think the argument got lost. Let me know if you disagree with me. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And now another argument is ramping up to replace this one. So Caroline Leavitt announced today that she's refusing to respond to emailed questions from reporters who display their pronouns in their email signatures, saying that they deny biological reality and can't be trusted to write honest stories. I agree with you. I agree with you 1,000%. I say if you write in your pronouns Jedi Master, then I don't believe anything else you write because you're completely full of it. Completely full of it. You want an example? Yesterday, somebody pointed this out to me, and I couldn't believe how blatant the lie was in this case. What happened yesterday? Anybody ever hear of the outlet The New Republic? Clearly a lefty outlet when I went looking through it. Here's the headline. Trump claims Nazis treated Jewish prisoners with love. Is that what he actually said? No, of course not. That's not what he said at all. But from that headline from Marin Scotton, who I think is an intern over there, or used to be an intern over there, she now made it sound like Donald Trump said the Nazis treated the Jews well. That's not what he said at all. What did he actually say?
I had people right in this office, this beautiful Oval Office. They came in, 10 people, hostages, you know that. And I said to them, so how was it? And the stories they told me, I mean, as an example, I said to them, was there any sign of love? You were there, 10 people. It's only 10, but it's pretty representative. Did the Hamas show any signs of, like, help or liking you? Did they wink at you? Did they give you a piece of bread extra? Did they give you a meal on the side, like, you know, you think of doing? Like what happened in Germany, what happened elsewhere. People would try and help people that were in unbelievable distress. They said no. I said all of them. I said, did they ever wink at you like, you'll be okay? You're going to be okay? No, they didn't do that. They'd slap us. The hatred is unbelievable. And the lives, you know, they lived in a pipe. Not really a tunnel, it was a pipe.
Okay, that's what he actually said. Never use the word Nazis. What was Donald Trump talking about? Righteous Gentiles, righteous among nations, as we call them on the Jewish side. Germans who saved Jews during the Holocaust. That's what he was talking about. Anybody who has seen Schindler's List, Schindler, Oskar Schindler, actual member of the Nazi Party, saved Jews. Anybody who's even seen Schindler's List, I'm not even saying studied World War II history. This person, Marin Scotton, is an intern. Probably had a public school education in a liberal college or liberal school. Probably has no idea what the hell she's talking about. Probably has never studied history at all. But anybody with a cursory knowledge of what happened would know what he was talking about. Instead, you write, Trump claims Nazis treated Jewish prisoners with love. And I read the article. In the article, she even quoted what he actually said and still went with that headline. New Republic, I got to tell you something. CBS, CNN, MSNBC have all been sued for a lot less than this. This is a blatant falsehood. Yes, reporters lie. Yes, reporters have their slant. But I ask you, is this fight worth it for the Trump administration? Or does it distract from the agenda? Give us a call or a text, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my favorite story of the day. Apparently, the Snow White movie produced more carbon emissions than the latest Fast and Furious movie. We'll have that report for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I guffawed out loud last night, and I immediately sent this article to everybody I know. I don't usually bother Mike after hours. Mike can attest to that. I leave Mike alone. Mike works hard enough. Mike has other stuff he does. I do not bother him at night. But I DM'd him this on Twitter because I was laughing that hard over this article. This is from The Guardian. The Guardian is a left-leaning outlet. And I have to preface by saying I never trust their reporting. And even though I laughed at this article, I don't trust the reporting in this article either. It makes for great fodder of the show, though. According to The Guardian, the Snow White remake, the live-action Snow White remake, was worse for the environment, produced more carbon emissions than the most recent Fast and Furious movie. Now, the math they use and the tracking they use, I think there are serious issues with it, and my math isn't even that great. They say a lot of this is because of generators, because a lot of the stuff was filmed on site. Okay, I'm gonna put this out there for a second. I've seen the Snow White movie. A lot of that stuff is CG. What do you mean by filmed on site? Did you go to this magical world you claim you were in? I know you guys were out in a field for a little while, but most of this stuff was filmed in a studio with no props, no nothing, just a giant green screen. Now, Fast and Furious movies, lots of gas-guzzling cars, lots of stunts. That's insane. Was it because you guys were flying all over the place to different production studios? Was that what it was? But I love how mad the left is about this. The left should be defending this movie and saying, well, it went woke, and we love woke, and woke's fantastic. But even they can't defend this turd. So now they're trying to find things to be mad about. And what they have chosen is the carbon emissions put out by this fake movie where everything was CG. The left-leaning outlet performed an analysis of over 250 Walt Disney movie sets. The results revealed that Snow White and the Little Mermaid, I forgot they even did a live-action remake of The Little Mermaid, produced more pollution than any other Disney film made in the UK since 2019, when environmental reporting requirements first went into effect. The report showed that the two Disney movie remakes combined to produce more pollution than the annual amount produced by Birmingham and Luton airports. Additionally, each of the movies generated more pollution than the annual totals for Blackpool Pleasure Beach and London's O2 Arena. This is very funny to me. If it's accurate, I'm finding it entertaining. Does this mean you had to fly Rachel Zegler all over the world? Is that what it is? The Little Mermaid almost doubled the number, producing 5,127 tons of carbon. Snow White produced approximately 3,153 tons, roughly 62% more than the 2,600-ton benchmark. Snow White reportedly also eclipsed the most recent Fast and Furious film, despite the latter's gas-guzzling cars. According to them, the use of portable generators was attributed to most of the energy usage, as Snow White and The Little Mermaid were mainly filmed on location. Where did you film The Little Mermaid? I'm kind of wondering how much of that was real, too. I haven't even seen that movie. Now, let's discuss our Fast and Furious movies for a second. The Fast and Furious movies have caused a problem in the car market. They have destroyed so many valuable cars that there are less of them than there were before. Those were in the earlier franchises before everybody wanted these suckers. How many Dodge Chargers? How many 1969 and 1970 Dodge Chargers have those movies destroyed? Of course, by making them famous with Vin Diesel, people are going to want them more. But in the Vin Diesel world, I know that scene in Fate of the Furious, F8, when all those cars are falling out of the parking garage, none of those cars are real. Can we be real about this? This is all done through CG. But at the same time, these Disney movies are being done through CG. So where's your energy usage? I assume the CG is probably talking about these big projection screens like we've seen before and the power for the computers and the data banks. But I'm not following this math here. Is it funny? Absolutely. Do I find it entertaining? Absolutely. Do I think it's accurate? No, I really don't. What I also find funny is the movie is on track to be a box office bomb, could result in a $115 million loss for Disney. The studio has already paused plans for other live-action remakes of animated films. Snow White is also one of the lowest-rated titles on IMDb right now. Yeah, this is pretty entertaining to me. We got about a minute left. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, got about a minute, buddy. What's up?
Linwood Times is reporting the glorious news, and remember, I'm a transit guy. The glorious news that Attorney General Nick Brown will defend the Climate Commitment Act against Donnie Trump in his attacks on our transit community.
That's not good news, Joe. That's not good news. I know you think it's good news. I'll tell you what, Joe. I'm going to put you on hold through the next segment because I'm actually going to be discussing this when we come back, and I'll let you make your case when we do that. Also, when we come back, my friends, your chance to be part of the golden age of America during our latest contest where you could win $2,025 and a Daniel's Broiler gift card. Plus, you find out how the state of Washington is going to buy you an e-bike with the money from the Climate Commitment Act. That and a whole lot more when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless. You want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves? Give us a call or text at the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, everybody in Washington gets an e-bike. Not you, not you, not you. But we'll tell you who does. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is time for the Golden Age of America contest, my friends.
I can proudly proclaim that the golden age of America is upon us.
Exactly right. Now, if you want to be part of the Golden Age of America, here's how you do it, my friends. I'm going to give you a word, and you're going to text that word to the number I give you. Only that word, not your phone number, not your address, not your name. And you're only going to text the word one time. You're going to text that word, and then you will be entered to win $2,025 in cash and a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Today's word is pact, as in Donald Trump is going to sign a pact with countries to ensure that their trade deals are fair. I'm going to make a pact with you. P-A-C-T. That's P-A-C-T, pact. You have until 5 p.m. to enter that word at 206-421-5757. Text it to 206-421-5757. Your next chance at winning comes tomorrow at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Phil Vandervoort. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout or delivery order, and more. And I am so thankful that Donald Trump has given us the opportunity to be part of the golden age of America.
Well, and thank you, Ari. You do an incredible job and such an important voice. Thank you very much, Ari.
Well, I really appreciate that, President Trump. Thank you so much for saying that every single day. He says it perfectly every single time. There's no going off script, nothing. That's very rare for him, but it's really great that he does that every single day. Switching gears, if you like giveaways, my friends, you might get a free e-bike from Washington State. Now, today, a new program went into effect, and this is one we made fun of a lot. Hundreds of millions of dollars were allocated by your Washington legislature, by Democrats in the Washington legislature, because they like paying for lots of things, to buy bicycles in Washington. Now, when we did the math last year and we pulled up the average price of a bicycle, and we did how many people were in Washington, you still had hundreds of millions of dollars left over. So we said, well, did they teach them to ride bicycles? And then when we said, even if you got everybody lessons in Washington, you'd still have tens of millions of dollars left over. Well, now we know what this money is actually going towards. According to Como News, people living in Washington will have a chance at some free money they can spend on an e-bike. Okay, can we be real about the e-bikes for a second here? My father-in-law bought one, used it for half a minute, and then got rid of it. The e-bikes are cool. I think they're very, very cool. They're great for people like me that want to say we've been bike riding. I used to bike ride all the time, but you know what? My knees ain't what they used to be, and I'm a little pudgier than I used to be, and I really should get back on the bike to lose that weight. I really, really should. But one time I was thinking about getting that e-bike. I said, you know what? Instead of driving to work, maybe on some sunny days during the summer, I can make myself feel good about myself by bike riding downhill on the way home and using the e-bike for the way up the hill because there's a lot of hills here in Seattle. Maybe I could do that. That's what I thought about. But I got rid of that idea because I love driving my Dodge Charger. And I want to thank my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram for the new tires they hooked me up with. And you can head on over there and save a ton of money if you go to Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. And they have specials on weekends, especially on Saturdays, for service, even if you don't have a Dodge Chrysler Jeep or Ram. And I like my car. Plus, what else? It rains 8 months out of the year here. The bike lanes that Seattle spent $11 million a mile on rarely get used. We might see cyclists today on the way home because it was sunny this morning. And maybe you'll see them in the rest of Fool's Spring or Fall Spring or whatever we call it around here. But we're spending this money on e-bikes for people? Yeah. They're giving out $4 million towards e-bikes. They expect to give out 10,000 vouchers. Now, I looked up the requirements for this program, and you got to be under the state's median income to even qualify for this. But here's something else. Qualifying applicants will receive rebates for either $1,200 or $300. Wait a second. You're giving out money so somebody could buy a $1,200 e-bike? I was shocked, by the way, when I looked at the pricing of e-bikes, how they're thousands of dollars. I look at one in a store one time because I'm perusing and I'm curious, and I go, oh, that thing's pretty badass. Maybe I will get one. $3,400. So now you're saying to somebody who's below the median income level, we'll give you $1,200 for that $3,500 bike, but you still have to come up with the rest of it for something you're only going to ride 3 months out of the year at most. How many people commute by bicycle? Here's something else. I went to Grok. Grok is the Twitter AI, the X AI, and it is great at collating data. So I was curious, if you rented a Lime bike every day, 5 days a week for the entire year. Now, you know you're going to take vacations. You know you're going to do that. It is still half the price. Half the price if you rent it for 30 minutes a day. Half the price of this insanity. But this is what we're dropping the money on when we have a $15 billion budget deficit? Maybe we shouldn't be giving out the rebates to pay for bicycles for everybody. Just a thought, by the way, for these things that are not going to help you get to work. Oh, by the way, if everybody's riding the bicycle, what do we need transit for? Right? If everybody's riding the bikes, what do you need the transit for? Now everybody's got an e-bike. It's basically a glorified motorcycle or a less cool motorcycle. So what do you need the transit for? You don't need the transit for either. Donald Trump signed an executive order today getting rid of a ton of this climate commitment insanity. My favorite thing is he undid the Obama shower heads. This cracks me up. So Obama, he put restrictions on water flow as if water's not a renewable resource. It comes back. Have you guys never taken science class? Oh, right. We don't actually study science in science class in public schools anymore. So water evaporates, comes back. Evaporates, comes back. That's how water works. Plus, we have desalination technologies. We have all this stuff. Washington's talking about being in a drought. It's because you guys suck at water management. That's why. We're next to an ocean. There are ways of dealing with this that you guys don't actually want to do. But talking about the drought again. So they undid these restrictions that Obama put on shower heads. I always think of the Seinfeld episode where they have the water pressure issue and Kramer's hair is flat and Jerry's hair is flat. And they get this Michael Richards physical comedy is amazing where they put in this high pressure shower head and it's blowing him against the edge of the if you haven't seen a Seinfeld episode, go check out that one because it's pretty entertaining. So Donald Trump's undoing that. Also, support for nuclear energy in the U.S. is approaching record highs. Also, Donald Trump is saying, can we go back to loggings? Why? Because it'll cut down on forest fires. These are all common sense things. He's against this cap and trade insanity, which is spiking our gas prices. Mike, I don't think a single day goes by where I don't get a text when I talk about gas prices coming down where somebody doesn't say, what are you talking about? They're not coming down here in Washington. And what do I say all the time? Yeah, that's because of the Climate Commitment Act. And something you need to understand with this, my friends, if the price of gas goes up, the price of everything else in your life goes up. You want to know why things are so expensive here? Because everything gets brought here on a giant truck that is not electric. So the prices are going up and going up and going up. Plus, they're limiting how many of these carbon credits they're going to sell and how many permits they're going to sell to the oil companies. So your prices are only going to continue to go up. And the Washington legislature wants to slap another gas tax on you on top of that that's tied to inflation, which is always going to go up. So you want to know why our tax dollars are going up? Because of the Washington Democrats who talk about affordability all the time. Now, he's been hanging tough for a while, and I promised him he could defend his position. So, back on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up is, a few points. Number one, even with beautiful e-bikes, we still need public transit. Not everyone can use an e-bike. But we do need, public transportation, and most transits that are not protected by a CCA are in a death spiral because they do not have the funding. The CCA is the thin green line saving Skagit Transit, community transit.
Can I ask you a question, Joe? Let me ask you a question. I'm asking this very seriously. I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
You can fire away.
Can't buses go places trains can't because trains have their one line?
Yes, and the point I'm trying to make is that this fund CCA does not. Very little of the CCA goes to Sound Transit, and the CCA funds paratransit.
Wait a second, Joe. I think we're about to find agreement. Over 90% of the CCA doesn't go to anything that benefits the climate at all. Did you read the analysis from the Center Square where you're listening the day where we did those math numbers, where we did the calculations, where we said where that money was actually going? Because majority of it isn't going to that either. It's going to nonsense, DEI-type projects, stuff to educate people about the climate. It's not actually doing anything to fix the climate or even pay for your transit.
Well, I would be open to a smaller package that maintained 100% of funding to transit, but all I hear from you guys is eliminate it.
Whoa. Have I ever said eliminate transit? I have said their funding is insane and out of control, is what I've said. I've said eliminate the CCA because it's not actually funding the things you want. For example, here's where you can get me, Joe. Ready? Here's how you argue with Ari Hoffman. Okay. All right? I'm going to tell you how to get me. You should say, so, Ari, you don't pay your car tabs and you don't want to pay your gas tax. How do you expect to fund transit if you want to keep transit? That's the argument you should be hitting me with right now, Joe. That's what you should be hitting me with. Because if I'm just no to everything, then there's no way to fund transit, right?
Yes, but you are supporting, transit through property, Sound Transit through property and sales tax. You're supporting King County Metro through your sales tax in Seattle.
So that would be my answer. But what has always been my thing about the transit around here, Joe? My thing is, why am I paying for all this when nobody who rides transit does? Now, I know you pay. And I know there's some other people who pay, but Sound Transit's revenue, only 2%, actually comes in from people who ride the train. And you and I both know, hang on, I'll let you talk in a second, Joe. You and I both know that the majority of people who are riding those trains are not paying, right?
There are many who are paying, and there's been increased emphasis on fare checks. I was just fare checked this Sunday morning at 9 a.m. on the link going to the Museum of Light for an event. So
that started this month. We know that Metro and King County and Sound Transit and everybody put the emphasis back on that this month. It started on April 1st, as a matter of fact.
Actually, Sound Transit started last year, but King County Metro started this month.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. They did start last year, but they started last year. How long has Sound Transit been around for?
Since at least 1995, and they occasionally have done fare checks, but they're now doing it regularly at the urging of writers like myself who are very supportive and defensive of the agency, but everyone needs to pay their fair share. The 2% figure you give includes all capital expenditures. You should look at the figures only for operating.
Okay, so we'll look at the operating stuff, and I assume it's a little bit more, but still not what it should be. And as I say all the time, my friend, Joe, have you been to New York before?
One time.
Okay, have you ridden their transit system?
Obviously.
Okay. So what is on every surface on that train, aside from disgusting things? What is on every surface of that train? Advertising. And Sound Transit does a really lousy job of that, especially when they have all these new overpasses where they've built the trains, which could be billboards. And what am I always seeing on the advertising for Metro also? Advertisements for city projects, advertisements for state programs. They do a really terrible job of getting any advertisers on these things.
Yes, it could be improved. I agree, which is one reason why I support an elected Sound Transit board, but I also support having a CCA to support the small agencies like Skagit Transit that literally puts on the side of their buses, they're funded by the Climate Commitment Act, because we're that small.
But you just proved my point. They're putting that on the
I
side
did
of the
not prove
buses and
anything.
not the advertising. You're proving my point, Joe, but I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the back and forth. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, House Democrats are pushing a bill from the Senate that could increase the prices of packaged food items by as much as 27%. According to the Washington House Republicans, these taxes on Washington families cannot come at a worse time. 55% of Washington residents are experiencing food insecurity, according to the latest Washington State Food Security Survey. What does that mean? Have you driven past any food banks recently? Have you seen how long the lines have been? This has been since the Biden administration. Things cost more money. So, would you like to know how much the grocery packaging tax is going to affect you? Laminated pouches, 21.65% increase. Cling wrap film, 18.21%. Film sandwich bags, 17.71%. Clamshell containers, 16.77%. By the way, I'm looking at this. We should just call this the parent tax. It is everything you use to make your kids' lunch. And anything that's on here that you don't use in your kids' lunch is a restaurant tax. It's a fast food tax. That's what all of this is. The Democrats basically said, what can we tax in Washington that we don't tax already? What did we talk about yesterday? The dating app. Oh, and your suggestions yesterday, some of them I missed because of our text contest. They were absolute gold, the things you guys suggested that the Democrats tax because they're so insane, but that's what they're actually doing. They're taxing everything they can think of. And they're not reducing spending to solve this self-inflicted budget gap. They're not cutting spending at all. And you know why they're taxing everything? Because they know that as soon as they get that tax through one time, it'll never go away. And then they can just increase it and increase it and increase it. This isn't about the actual $7 billion budget gap. Why do they keep calling it a $15 billion budget gap? Because these are for the programs they want to spend money on, not the things they're necessarily spending the money on right now. And it's only going to get worse for all of us. This is what they are wasting our money on. Of course, they're going to fight the repeal of the Climate Commitment Act and Donald Trump's executive order, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with climate change. It has to do with the fact of how many gajillions of dollars they are making on the Climate Commitment Act because of the tax on you. You are paying this insane amount of money so they can give out e-bikes to people. So they can give out e-bikes to people who shouldn't be buying e-bikes. You want to ride a bike to work, get the exercise. Then you solve a health problem too, and it's going to be RFK Jr. approved. You want a bike to work, then bike to work. You don't need an e-bike to get to work. Because here's something else, my friends. You need to charge that e-bike. And that's going to cost you money, whereas your regular bike sitting in the garage, that's not going to cost you anything. On top of that, that power comes from somewhere. And what are our sources of power right now? You think your e-bike is good for the environment? Where did the battery in it come from? This is just giveaways for the sake of giveaways. That's what this insanity is. And they want you to pay for it. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, more colleges are losing federal funding, and I'm kind of cracking up because they're almost done with the Ivy League. That means they're coming for the state colleges next. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Yesterday, the New York Times reported that the Trump administration has frozen over $1 billion in federal funding to Cornell University and another $790 million for Northwestern University over potential civil rights violations at the schools. Now, they froze the money coming from agriculture, education, defense, health, and human services departments. This is fascinating because what they're doing is they're saying we're cutting off your research. We're saying we're not doing the same work. Now, the problem is you still want research to go to things. But at the same time, why does it have to be done by these schools? Are they really the best? Let me ask you a real question. If they can't tell you what bathroom to use, do you want them doing research of any kind? Are those the people you want doing the research at all, especially when it comes to biology? Northwestern University told Fox News that the university has not received any official notification from the federal government and found out about it through the media. That's even funnier to me, by the way. Both Cornell and Northwestern were included on a list of 60 colleges and universities that the Department of Education Civil Rights Branch warned earlier this month could lose federal funding in response to not addressing anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment on campus. Now, I'm kind of happy about this, and let me tell you why. Aside from these lefty elitist institutions losing their federal funding, they're almost done with the Ivy League. Yeah, you may not have noticed this. I had a little checkbox at home. Who's in the Ivy League? I go to my little list and compare. There's only 2 schools in the Ivy League that haven't lost federal funding. When they're done with the Ivy League, where do you think they go to next? What I would do is I would do private colleges. I think you have a better argument there, and I think you're going to see less opposition, which is what they're doing right now. Then after that, you know where your real battle is going to be? State colleges. What's going to happen? Let's take University of Washington for a second here. So what's going to happen with University of Washington is the second you threaten their funding or freeze their funding in any way, shape, or form, and they deserve it more than most, by the way, Bob Ferguson all of a sudden is going to remember that he's an alumni of University of Washington. He didn't want to remember that when all the anti-Semitism was happening on campus or all the Gaza protesters were on campus and the school wasn't doing anything about it. Bruce Harrell all of a sudden is going to remember. Jay Inslee all of a sudden is going to remember. And they're all going to come gunning for the Trump administration. Good, I want the fight. This is a fight that the Trump administration should have. You guys violated all these civil rights laws that Democrats passed, by the way. And now you want to have a double standard? You want to say we want to support the Hamas supporters and not the Jews and Christians on campus? I want that fight. The Trump administration should want that fight. The question is, how many fights can they have on how many different fields at how many times? I'm excited for this fight. Do you want to see University of Washington lose federal funding? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 because I really want to see this. Bruce writes over on the text line, Ari, every time Donald Trump pulls off another coup, utterly confounding his critics and making things better for America, Americans say, they go back to, wait, what did you write here? Oh, here we go. I think you got a different text going on here, but basically what you're saying here, he's saying is that every time the left thinks they won, every single time, they lose the left all of a sudden is just destroyed by Donald Trump, who's coming out of this thing and saying, yeah, I won again, because here, as we did in the opening segment of the show, Donald Trump comes out and he says, hey, you know what? With regards to all this, I'm going to roll back your tariffs for 90 days, but you better come to the negotiating table. And China, you're not getting things any easier. Now, as we were discussing earlier, Mike knows this. Mike and I were discussing this earlier. You do have some problems with some people who buy goods. So, for example, Cheyenne. A lot of women buy clothing from Cheyenne. A lot of people buy clothing from Cheyenne. Those prices just went up 104%. There's a lot of goods that come from China, and their prices just absolutely skyrocketed. If you've got every suburban mom getting mad, every suburban mom who's on a budget getting mad about how much money things are costing from China, the pressure is going to go on the Trump administration, not China. These people are not going to start saying, hey, China, can you lower, can you make a deal with us or anything? And that's actually what China's counting on. They're counting on this affecting people's polling, and they have nothing to worry about.
Well, I think what we're seeing is the unintended consequences and dare I say, less educated public getting caught in the crossfire.
Yes.
Like there are folks now, friends of mine, that are like, hey man, I voted for lower grocery prices. Why do my robot toys cost more now?
Yes.
That kind of thing. Because we're seeing tariffs on China and Vietnam and Japan. And guess where all of our transforming robot toys come from?
Yes. Well, I thought they came from Vietnam. You were talking about that last week.
Yes.
So those have been paused. So your robot toys may be okay. And Vietnam's supposedly one of the ones that's going to work out a deal. So those prices should go down. We do know that a lot of this stuff is made in China, though. And with regards to the stuff that is made in China, the stuff that's made in China, here's the other thing. China wants us as a consumer. We buy tons of dumb things. I'm not saying robot toys are dumb. I buy dumb things too. I buy Star Wars stuff, right? We buy that stuff, and a lot of it is made in China. They want us as a consumer. So my question to you is, what do you think is going to win out first? Americans going, our things are costing more? Or China saying, we can outlast this because we don't need them as consumers? I actually think they do need us as consumers because they need that money for their economy. If they want to continue their Silk Road programs, somebody's got to pay for all this. Meanwhile, from Wade over on the text line, he says, woke insane UW to lose funding. You go, Trump. This one from the 206. Defund UW. They're producing lunatics. Yeah, I think you're all 100% right about that. 100%. Speaking of lunatics, by the way, this is messed up. Journalist Megyn Kelly revealed on Monday that she had obtained over 1,000 pages of writings left behind by Nashville Covenant school shooter Audrey Hale, with the never-before-published pages providing clear insight into the depraved mind of a killer. According to the Post-Millennial on her morning show, Kelly read out portions of the writing, including a passage written in one of the final pages before the attack that stated, I have to kill so I can be remembered in the most horrific way possible that no one will ever forget. Signing off under the name Aiden, Hale's preferred male name. Right, it was a trans shooter. Kelly said the pages, which her team reviewed over the weekend, detail a deeply disturbed individual planning meticulously over the years to carry out mass shooting and then kill herself. The killer discussed her autism diagnosis, race, her desire for black love and acceptance, as well as her hatred for her own whiteness. Many pages had content that was sexual in nature, including her frustration of being a virgin, and also included information about Hale's guns and training with firearms, as well as references to other school shootings. Now, this is all stuff. This is all stuff from the leftist playbook. That's what it is. This is a person brainwashed by ideology. Why do you think the FBI didn't want to release it under Joe Biden? Why do you think the Department of Justice didn't want to release it under Joe Biden? Why do you think they want to keep all this stuff a secret? Because if they do, you don't get people like us saying, told you so. This is the kind of stuff you are brainwashing kids with, and you are warping their minds. Our own police chief, Sean Barnes, the new Seattle police chief, wasn't he the one in the city who said, he was feeling bad for the shooter's family, not the victims? This is the insanity we're dealing with around here. They're trying so hard to say this isn't a story. And you know what? The more you conceal this kind of stuff, the more little shooters you're allowing to pop up all over the place because these mental health issues are not going away. Sweeping them under the rug does not solve anything. You're creating more and more problems. Look at the mental health problems in schools right now going through the roof. And the left doesn't want to deal with it. They don't want to discuss, could calling everybody a racist, if they have a different skin color, actually have an effect on a kid's mental development? Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Terry, who's caught on I-5 North. Terry, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. Yeah, I just returned today from Europe, actually. I was over there for a week and had a lot of conversations with people about the tariffs and things. And I came back, turned you on the radio as I'm heading up north home, and I hear you saying that we should have, Trump, the moment a country said, let's have a discussion about tariffs, he put the 90-day pause on. I'm like, no, Ari, you're wrong. You're playing two-dimensional chess. Trump is way ahead, 3-4 dimensions. He needed at least a week. Because the reason was, one of the things that became clear from my friends in Europe, all of them said the same thing. Trump is the first politician we've ever seen who does what he says.
Mm-hmm.
You got to believe. He says it, believe him.
Right.
Trump came in and he said, tariffs are coming.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with us now. Nobody did. Instead, it was, hey, we're gonna hit you hard with tariffs. We're gonna make you guys hurt. This is gonna be a trade war. until they went into effect. In Europe, you should see the news. They're all talking recession, depression, and it's all terrible Trump and how he's trying to hurt everybody, on and on and on. But now they're all coming to the table. If Trump didn't wait at least a week so they felt the pain, because they all came, he's like, no, you're going to have the pain because next time when I say something, you will come to the table at that time, not wait and say, let's see if Trump's really going to go through with this.
That's a
That's
fair
all they
point.
did for 2
No,
3 months.
that's a fair point, Terry. That is a 100% fair point. But don't forget, in the meantime, you got people who are picking up the price on our end right now who are holding back the money from our economy. That's what may have forced Trump's hand, was that may trigger a recession. You have to balance these two things. I'm not criticizing him one way or the other, but I think you make an excellent point that Trump is the guy who does exactly what he says he's going to do, and people have learned right now, don't mess with him. We'll see what China ends up doing. Terry, great commentary. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. When we come back, what's going on in the Washington State Legislature? Julie Barrett from Conservative Ladies of America will be joining us to give us the update on the latest insanity. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I got to tell you guys, when they say hate crimes, I know they usually involve acts against Jews. And I think to myself, great, I really don't want to deal with this again. I really don't talk about this again. Because if somebody assaults somebody, it should just be assault. If somebody vandalizes something, it should just be vandalism. When you start adding in the hate crimes angle on it, all of a sudden that's the easiest thing to disprove because you have to prove intent in the court of law, and you have a hard time doing it. So, for example, what just happened on Mercer Island, you had two teenagers that wrote swastikas and other hate stuff on a school. They also drew phallic symbols. So you couldn't really hit them with intent because are they just dumb teenagers or what? So no hate crimes, no charges, no nothing, which is why I think saying it's a hate crime is actually very, very stupid. And this is me, an Orthodox Jew, and Jews are the majority of victims of actual hate crimes in this country. Now, what's happening here in Washington is that Democrats in the legislature are trying to find a way to criminalize free speech. And the angle they have found to do it is by targeting Republicans, targeting conservatives, where you said something that offended somebody. Now it gets reported to Bob Ferguson's little hotline. You should ask why you need a hotline when you already have 911. Obviously, this is designed to go after conservatives, to go after Republicans, to go after anybody who disagrees with them, even moderate Democrats. Joining me now to discuss from Conservative Ladies of America and Conservative Ladies of Washington, the one and only Julie Barrett. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, this gets a little complicated here, but as I understand it, there were some hearings to expand this legislation, and Republicans were originally on board with it, and then the Democrats pulled a bait and switch. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, so it was a House bill. It is a House bill, House Bill 1052, and the original bill read that a person is guilty of a hate crime offense if they do the following acts in whole or in part. When the bill was on the House floor back in early March, there was an amendment proposed to put in the word substantial. So instead of in whole or in part, it would read in whole or in substantial part. And so because of that amendment, 4 Republicans voted yes for the bill. What we often see happening in a case like this, and what did happen with this, is when it went over to the Senate side and it was in the Law and Justice Committee, they pulled that word substantial out and reverted the bill back to its original context. So it just reads in whole or in part. The bill has now passed through the House and the Senate. I think it has to go back to the House for concurrence, but I don't see that on the bill status page, but it just shows passed both of the chambers. And on the Senate side, it was passed on, party lines. So not a single Republican in the Senate voted for this, which is good. You just want to see them holding the line. But this really expands the hate crime law in Washington. That in part section really opens it wide up to, the discretion of the judge or the jury.
Right. And this is insane because if a leftist judge in Washington state doesn't like your politics, kind of like the judges who've just been ruling against the Trump administration with no actual legal standing, if you read the decisions, it's basically, we don't like this, we don't like him, orange man bad, so we ruled this way. It's some of the worst written legal theory, but now they have something to actually back them up where, well, my discretion says I feel this way and I win.
Right.
Insane. Absolutely insane. Now, here's the thing. On a local level, you were telling me before we started the interview that this actually has ramifications locally because some cities are taking the next step with this by becoming sanctuary cities for protected classes.
Yeah, so we're seeing that, all across the state, not so much on the east side, a little bit in some of those blue pockets on the east side, but you're seeing it in Redmond, Kenmore, Kirkland, Bothell. And so the latest thing is last night, Bothell City Council had their regular meeting, and there was a resolution proposed that would make Bothell a welcoming community for transgender, non-binary, and gender diverse people, and committing to proactive protections for the civil rights, safety, and well-being of all LGBTQIA+ individuals. There would be a funding aspect to this because they're going to do special events and trainings and things like that. There's also a component that the Bothell Police Department would have to get special training so that they can interact with this special community of people.
Okay. All right. This is beyond insane. I mean, what's next? We're going to have special training how to hide Jews in attics? I'm seriously, I'm saying that as a Jew. This whole thing is absolutely insane. Where does it end? So are people in Bothell going along with this or what?
Well, so the city council says that they need this because orange man bad, because the Trump administration is coming after the LGBTQIA people. They're just going to be ripping them off the streets, just like they're doing to immigrants. And so that's why this is needed, so this community can feel safe in Bothell, which, of course, they can't cite to any specific policy or order or anything that has come out of the Trump administration that would substantiate this claim. But there were a lot of citizens, just common sense citizens, that came out last night to speak in opposition to this resolution. It was nice to see a couple of young men, I would say around the age of 19, who spoke in opposition to this. And at the end of all of the public comment, the mayor, Mason Thompson, called it hate speech and said that because of comments like this that we need to have this resolution. And it always kills me when these people start quoting the Bible and saying they're Christians and this is why they need this resolution. Meanwhile, they're making up stories and don't live in reality and all of that. It's insanity.
Absolutely insane. This is virtue signaling gone absolutely crazy. Julie, what other bills are we watching this session before we let you go?
Well, that rent control bill, House Bill 1217, that's in the Rules Committee, could go to the floor any day. I don't know if you're tracking this, but the permit to purchase bill for the firearms, House Bill 1163, was amended before it passed out of committee to push the start date out to, I believe it's June 1, 2027. And I kind of think that might be because they don't maybe have all their funding ducks in a row. So what else? 1696, that home equity program for historically marginalized communities. That one is ready for a vote in the Senate anytime as well. So there's a lot of stuff that is gearing up for votes. This is a big week for bills to be passing out of their opposite chambers and then head towards the governor's desk.
Julie Barrett from Conservative Ladies of Washington, thank you for keeping us updated on all the insanity in Olympia. If people want to subscribe to your website, your newsletter, how's the best way for them to do it?
They can head over to our website at conservativeladiesofwa.com.
Julie Barrett from Conservative Ladies of Washington, Conservative Ladies of America, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, really do appreciate it. Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio. My friends, this year marks not only the 125th anniversary of the Washington State Fair, but also the 35th anniversary of the Washington State Spring Fair. Yes, we know it was called the Puyallup. We still call it the Puyallup. You can call it the Puyallup, but on paper, Washington State Fair, okay? And the Washington State Spring Fair, April 10th through 13th and 17th through 20th. You can celebrate the bright, cheery arrival of the season at Washington's biggest celebration of spring. You got 2 fun-filled weekends with all the fun stuff, including the animals, the rides, the entertainment, and delicious food, plus the exhibits, the agricultural experiences, you name it. And I'm very, very excited because this is the first time I get to go to the spring fair. I go to the fall fair all the time, but this is going to be my first time at the spring fair. Joining us now to discuss all the sights, sounds, and attractions that are going to be there this year, Stacy Van Horn, Public Relations Manager for the Washington State Fair. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm just peachy. I'm excited because I love the fair. I really, really do. The city boy in me, I love this kind of stuff. So I'm very, very excited for it. What's new at the fair this year?
Well, as you mentioned, it's the 35th annual spring fair. You know, this just started as a little fair back in 1990 as a way to celebrate spring. So this is kind of the fair that's a little bit smaller footprint, usually takes up about 90% of our fairgrounds. And it really does say spring. Everywhere you look, we have lots of gardening things and we have baby chicks. And one of my favorites and a fan favorite here are racing pigs. And that's exactly what it sounds like. You have racing pigs that go around a track and they try to win, and the first one there gets an Oreo, although I think they all get Oreos. It's like a participation award, but that's a really fun one. We've got Dock Dogs. It is also a staple of Spring Fair, and that is where dogs test their ability and agility to run and jump into a pool, catch treats. You know, some run to the end, they get scared, they fall in, but it's all in good fun, and that's another free exhibit as well.
A goat playground? What's that?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. Yes, speaking of animal babies, so it's exactly what it sounds like. You know, you take your kids to the park. Huh? Get it? Kids, goats.
Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha.
You.
Wait, Passover season. One little kid, one little kid. Very good. Very
Oh,
good.
my goodness.
Yes.
So anyway, we digress. So there will be about 20 goats, all shapes and sizes, that are running around. There's swings, there's tables, there's seesaws, because a lot of people may not realize that goats need that kind of activity and play. They even need a lot of space just to rest. So it's a free exhibit in one of our barns that guests can just stand there and, you know, be entertained by these goats all day long.
Is there goat yoga? My wife and her sisters did goat yoga one time. It was a lot of fun.
We had goat yoga years ago. We've been asked to bring it back. I would love to bring it back at some point. It's a lot more high maintenance than it sounds like. I did it on live TV. That was quite hilarious. We do love goat yoga, but that is not here this year. We're starting with the goat playground.
Gotcha. What is, though, is fair meal deals backed by popular demand. You have $10 value meals on weekdays from select vendors. That includes entrees, side, drink, and so much savings because of that. But also you have the collection. What is the collection? This sounds new to me.
Oh, we are so excited about the collection. So the collection was an idea birthed by the Washington State Fair Foundation. They give thousands of dollars in scholarships every year. People may not realize that we are actually a nonprofit, and we have this great foundation. And so they came up with the idea for the 125th to create this boutique. All proceeds will go to their cause. It is vintage items. You can even get framed lyrics of the Do the Puyallup song there. You can get really neat coffee mugs and shirts and all kinds of things that say Do the Puyallup. I think that people are really going to like it. We, as a staff, are already threatening to buy the whole thing out. So
That sounds awesome, and I have a friend I have to tell about this, or maybe while I'm there, I'll pick something up for them.
Absolutely. It's right inside the Gold Gate.
Awesome. Now, I just want to remind everybody that you can join KVI for the Spring Fair Military Appreciation Day, which is this Friday, April 11th. That's free admission for eligible military personnel. Gate admission is free for all active, reserve, and retired military and National Guard and their dependents, plus disabled veterans, when each shows valid military ID at any fair gate on Friday, April 11th. You get to hang out with the KVI crew, including the guys from our new morning show. That's right, The Morning Ride with Phil Vandervoort, as well as me and Mike. Also listen to 545 during the Good News giveaway for your chance to win 4 tickets to the Motorsport Mayhem Monster Truck Insanity Next Level Tour at the Washington State Fair on April 19th, my friends. It's an adrenaline-fueled weekend. Stacy Van Horn, Public Relations Manager for the Washington State Fair, thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and I'm glad you're finally going to make your way down here to the spring fair. It's only taken you 35 years.
Exactly. Well, I only lived here for 20, so give me a little credit. But make sure you get your tickets so you can come see me at the spring fair at thefair.com. That's thefair.com. Stacy, you have a good one. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
You can do it at a gallop. You can do it.
Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45. Your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card and tickets to Motorsport Mayhem Monster Truck Insanity at the Washington State Spring Fair. But before we get to any of that, we've had a lot of discussion today on the show about what happened with the tariffs, what happened with the stock market. Some of you are all in on Donald Trump. Some of you are going, there's good, there's bad. I think there's a lot of people who don't understand what actually happened. But right now, what's going on is there was a massive rally on Wall Street. We're going to see if that holds for tomorrow. A whole bunch of the losses that were already made as soon as they found out that the tariffs were being stalled for 90 days, except for the ones on China, a whole bunch of that money came back. Let's go through the wins that Donald Trump got in all of this. Win number one. China is alone on its own island. And basically the message has been put forth. Do you want to do business with us or do you want to do business with China? Here's what Caroline Levitt said earlier today.
Countries or so. I'm curious, though, under what conditions at this point would President Trump talk to President Xi about tariffs?
Look, I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that Xi and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
It's funny to hear all the Democrats try to say Trump lost in this case because it wasn't too long ago. The Democrats were calling for this exact same policy. This is Nancy Pelosi. And tell me how similar this sounds to what you just heard.
I do just want to point out one thing.
That's not Nancy Pelosi. That's the press secretary talking about Nancy Pelosi. Here's what she said about her.
That the president, everybody in Washington, whether they want to admit it or not, knows that this president is right when it comes to tariffs and when it comes to trade. In fact, Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, how far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo? Those are the words of Nancy Pelosi in 1996. Well, President Trump is finally answering her call 27 years later. Nancy Pelosi can thank President Trump today for the 104% retaliatory tariff that will be going into effect on China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying these are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. The administration needs to move beyond words, take action now to reverse a trend that threatens our prospects for future economic growth. And Chuck Schumer said that in 2007. Finally, in 2025, President Trump is taking action. Recently defeated Democrat Sherrod Brown said on deficits in 2012 that our deficit then at China had reached an all-time high, and it was on pace to recede last year's record. The trade deficit had cost American workers millions of jobs at the time. These are the words of Democrats years ago. It is about time America finally has a president who is taking action to restore those millions of jobs back to the United States of America, to boost our manufacturing industry. He's doing what's right for the American people. It will take a lot of labor. It will take a lot of effort. But that's exactly what the American people elected this president to do.
And that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. So Countries can decide if they want to do business with China or do business with the U.S., and they want U.S. consumers. Why? Because we buy dumb things. And they want us to continue buying the things that we buy. And we're one of the richest countries, if not the richest country in the world, aside from the ones with all the oil. And as a result, we have a lot of money to spend. Even people who are lower class or considered lower class here in America have a ton more money than billions of people on this planet. So they want our customers. They want to do business with us. And that's why over 70 countries have said we want to do these deals. So Donald Trump said, all right, let's hit the pause button for now and work out those trade deals so people's 401ks don't continue to tank. Here's what Donald Trump said this morning in the Oval Office.
You started the morning saying be cool. And then just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through what you were thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know. They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, you know, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also, but somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable. Last year, China made $1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's not right. And now I've reversed it. It's for a short period of time, but we made $2 billion. We're making now $2 billion a day. And somebody had to do it. Roger actually said it. Charles Schwab was here a little while ago, one of the great financial people, and he said, he's been waiting for 40 years for somebody to do what I did over the last month. And if you didn't do it, you wouldn't have a country. It wouldn't be sustainable. So I'm honored to have done it. And, you know, look, nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. You know, it's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people. And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well. And they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal. And we have many other countries.
So he's 100% right, because China wants the U.S. consumers. How do you think they pay for all the stuff they do all over the world? They want us, the people they have in slave labor, who are getting a bowl of rice a day to make G.I. Joes or whatever else it is, are not buying their products. We're the ones buying their products. So they want to make a deal. So we've isolated China. And we've put them as a, you do business with them or you do businesses with us, and we can make a deal or we can't. Now, the problem with that is it is making Chinese goods more expensive for Americans. And if those goods are made here in the U.S., they're going to be more expensive as well. I know a lot of people buy clothing on Shein for a minute. That's a good example. People are going to feel it in the wallet when they were looking for cheap stuff. Other countries may step up. Other countries in Asia may step up and say, you know what, we want to do business with the U.S. We want to have a fair trade deal. We want them as partners, and they may expand their operations. We may make more stuff here locally. But you've isolated China. You've put them on an island by themselves. And let's not forget, we're in an economic war with China. I'm worried. Are we actually going to be in a war with China with everything else going on? That's a huge win. Now, other wins that we have regarding what happened on the world stage, every country wants to make a deal. So many of these countries want to make deals with us, and now we can have balanced free trade if those deals see fruition. On top of that, everybody knows that Donald Trump is 1,000% serious on the world stage, that what he says he does. And if you mess with him, he's going to hit you with these trades, with these tariffs, and he doesn't care if he crashes his own stock market, and he brings it down and down and down. He doesn't want to hurt Americans, obviously. What else did he do? He brought down inflation. Look at all the money that left the stock market, all that money that was blown in there by the Biden administration that drove up inflation. Inflation came down as well. In addition, oil prices have come down. These are all the wins. Yeah, you may have felt it in the pocketbook, and I don't want to diminish that. I don't want to diminish what your 401k looks like or anything else, but it's on the rise and heading back up. And I believe that in the long run, this will be the best move. He warned it was going to be painful in the beginning, and he's telling the truth about that. So the end game here looks good, but I want to know what you think. Do you think it was wise to put the 90-day pause on the tariffs? Do you think it was a mistake? Are you all in on Trump? Are you having second thoughts? Do you think this is a win? Do you think this is a loss? Because the Democrats are portraying it like a loss, and I think they're 100% wrong. I think that Donald Trump has some messaging issues. I think there are too many people around here who don't understand the stock market. I think there are too many people who don't understand these economic issues. And what happens is when the stock market starts going down, they start thinking, oh my God, they're talking about a recession. Maybe I should hold on to my money so we won't take that vacation this year, or we won't buy that new car this year, or we won't buy that new TV this year, or whatever the case may be. And what you were starting to see was signs of that. You're also starting to see other countries dropping their bonds. A lot of people going into the bond market, leaving the bond market. You saw a lot of problems with that. And if you have problems with that, that means people aren't investing in America because they're worried about the long-term future of investing in America. There's a lot of this going on, but I want to know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 because a lot of people are all in. And they say, yeah, I'm a long-term hold. You don't sell at the bottom of a market anyway. It will come back. Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757 from the 253. President Trump just put everybody on notice that 90 days to come up with a deal. Otherwise, they're going to go back to where they were beforehand. So this is a limited time offer. Yes, 100% correct. 100% correct. Now, Shifty Adam Schiff, oh God, Adam Schiff, says he wants to do investigations into who made money during this. Adam Schiff's going to do investigations again. What are you going to come up with this time? Russia, Russia, Russia? China, China, China? Adam Schiff says he wants to investigate who made money during all this. How can we ever believe a word this man says ever again after he's been wrong so many times before with all his crazy witch hunts?
How concerned are you with this market fluctuation? And are you concerned that there could be members of the White House that are benefiting from it?
Absolutely. I'm writing to the White House to demand who knew in advance that the president was going to once again flip-flop on tariffs. And are people cashing in? There is just all too much opportunity for people in the White House and the administration to be insider trading, and you can't put it past them for a minute. So we're going to try to find out.
There's a good chance they'll just ignore you, though, right? Should there be some other independent investigation into this?
Well, I think Congress should do an investigation into this, but we're going to demand answers from the administration. I think you're right. They're likely to stonewall, particularly if they've been engaged in corrupt insider trading. But they won't be able to hide it for good. I mean, we know who's in the administration. We can look at eventually what people are buying and selling. This will come out. But an administration that has their own meme coins and is already engaged in self-interested dealing with Elon doging agencies that are doing oversight of his own businesses, in that kind of corrupt climate, you have to assume the worst, and we're going to try to find out.
Assume the worst in a corrupt climate. Hey, Adam, can we check your track record for a second here? You literally made up the entire Russia collusion nonsense. Here's something else. You looking at Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio? You looking at any Democrats? Or are you just accusing this administration? He is not a serious person. And I know everybody was talking about how California was going more to the right in the last election. They elected him senator in a statewide election. It's not one small district where he stayed in Congress. They elected him senator. This is absolutely insane. Donald Trump made it very, very clear what he accomplished with this whole trade war and what his goals were.
I mean, we're cutting prices because prices got so high, people couldn't live. I mean, the prices for groceries, the prices for standard groceries, standard things were going through the roof. They couldn't live. And now those prices are coming down. So call them groceries, but that's down, energy's down, and interest rates are down. Everything's down. And the interest rates, the beauty there is when we refinance debt, you know, debt's become such a big factor in this country. We're going to start paying debt off with tariffs and other things. But it's such a big factor because the interest rate's so high. Well, now that's coming way down. So our budget's going to look a lot better because interest costs are way down. And I guess I've done that.
He's right. That is what he's done. Now, I want to know, are you all in? Has this reinforced your support of President Trump? Did you get a little shaky there? You can admit it. We're all friends here. Have you gone in a different direction? Perhaps you were kind of one of these one-time Trump voters, and this kind of shook your faith a little bit. I want to know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Bill in Maple Valley. Bill, what's up?
Hi, this is me again. It's actually Joe, but all right. My cousins have a machine shop here in the Seattle area. They've had it there for probably 70 years. There's this big airplane company that hires them to machine and design a part for their airplanes. And they get it all designed. They spend some big money getting it designed. And then this big airplane company sends it to Taiwan to have them build it cheaper.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
No.
You know, you have a community that spends all its money outside its area, that community goes broke.
Right. So the question is, can we get these jobs here? I mean, look at the amount of car companies that are not doing their assembly in America. Look at the amount of car companies that don't get any of their parts from America. There are so many of these companies that are now coming back here, and something I neglected to mention beforehand is that $7 trillion in investments is coming back here for American manufacturing. That means more jobs. That means more money being spent locally. That means more production being done in America. When's the last time you saw anything that had a Made in America label on it? Joe, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Robin Lakewood says, Schiff should investigate Nancy Pelosi. Yes, exactly right. You want to investigate the Trump administration? You found nothing last time, so you made it up. You literally made it up. Wade says, Shifty Shift is like all sleazeball politicians and expects Donald Trump to do exactly what he does. Right. Hey, how about we see how much money he made during all this? Hey, you remember all those congressmen, including some Republicans? It was mostly Democrats, but there were some Republicans who at the beginning of COVID went into a meeting about how bad COVID was, came out immediately and dumped all their stocks. Didn't tell anybody, though. Came out immediately and did that. I know there are these websites online that do tracking of stocks, but I have a better question for you. Why is it when you go into government, you don't have to do what the president does and immediately put everything in a blind trust? That's what Donald Trump has to do. That's what the president of the United States has to do. Why don't we have that rule for senators? Why don't we have that rule for Congress people? This is something that goes hand in hand with term limits. You want to drain the swamp? You want to get rid of corruption? Those are two things you really have to address right now. I would love to see Adam Schiff's stock portfolio. I would love to see all their stock portfolios because they're always making money regardless of what's going on. Especially Paul Pelosi. I haven't heard from that guy in a while. Wonder how he weathered this entire storm. Wonder how George Soros weathered this entire storm. But Adam Schiff's never going to go investigate them. He is hardwired into investigating Donald J. Trump, even when there's no there. You want me to prove it? Donald Trump was worth over $1 billion more before he was elected president. He was making a lot more money before he was elected president than now. In fact, there's many members of his cabinet. Elon Musk's net worth has gone down, but he wants to serve his country. Pete Hegseth, the millions of dollars he was ranking in at Fox News, but he wanted to serve his country. Dan Bongino was making millions of dollars from all his radio gigs and media gigs, but he wanted to serve his country. These are people who are all taking job wage cuts. Adam Schiff, I don't see him calling for that in Congress, right? No, of course not. We know all the politicians were still collecting their checks, where so many of us were being put out of our jobs by people like Adam Schiff during COVID. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. There's a new sobering center opening up here in Seattle, right next door to a pot shop. Wonder how that's going to fix your problem. But before we get to any of that, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to Motorsport Monster Mayhem Monster Truck Insanity Next Level Tour at the Washington State Fair. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on the dial, always right on your issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. So they announced that there's a new sobering center, which means drug, alcohol treatment kind of center, over on First Avenue in Sodo. Normally, these things destroy a neighborhood they're around, and they're usually set up for failure with the homeless industrial complex. But this one kind of cracked me up. So this one here is literally right next to a pot shop. In fact, the picture that Seattle Times put up as a featured image for this article has the pot shop right there in the background. Now, some people have reached out to me and said on social media, Ari, you don't understand. Sometimes when you put these things next to places like that, like bars or whatever, people who are thinking about going into the bar make other decisions. If you think I'm off base on this, you give me a call. But I think that putting a sobering center next to a pot shop is a recipe for failure. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, I saw this article and I started cracking up because it relates to this. We have made the case many, many times that if you keep giving the homeless or the drug addicts on the streets everything they want, you're just going to attract more of them. Everybody knows I love Bon Jovi, my favorite musical artist. I can separate the art from the artist. I know he's a liberal. I love his music. It's the soundtrack of my life. It is. But, according to the Daily Wire, a New Jersey Republican mayor ripped John Bon Jovi, saying the singer has turned his town into ground zero for homelessness. Toms River Township Mayor Dan Roderick said in a statement, run by John Bon Jovi's nonprofit, JBJ Soul Foundation, is causing more trouble than good, especially after it added a temporary pop-up location at the Ocean County Library. He said the restaurant opening has led to homeless individuals being bussed into the area, a move which the mayor claims is causing problems for the local community. Per the outlet, NewJersey.com, the temporary restaurant is not a traditional soup kitchen or pay-whatever-you-can establishment, but instead they serve 3-course meals and allow diners to pay it forward and cover a future meal for anyone who can't afford it. Patrons who can't pay are offered the opportunity to volunteer for the community kitchen in exchange for food. Now, this sounds like a very nice idea, right? The pop-up restaurant at the library opened in February and is slated to be shut down in May after its permit was extended from the initial closure date of March 31st. He said, we don't want to be ground zero for homelessness. We don't want to be a dumping ground for the homeless problem in the state of New Jersey. The state of New Jersey needs to step up and take care of the problem. They have the resources, and bussing people in from all over Toms River is not a safe situation. The mayor also noted that many of the homeless people encountered are from outside the town, outside the county, and in some cases outside the state of New Jersey. Do you know why that is? Because Seattle used to do the exact same thing. If you don't want to deal with your homeless population, you say, here's a bus ticket. Go there. They'll give you whatever you want. And Seattle was doing that for years until around, I think it was 2018, 2019, when they stopped doing that. And don't forget, that's when the real influx happened. Because other cities said, you know what? We don't want to deal with this nonsense. Let's send them all to Seattle. After all, they sent them to us. How many people have they estimated are not actually from Seattle who are living off our homeless services, who are living off our state services, who are getting free needles, free phones, gift cards, you name it? The last estimate I saw was 50%, which means it's likely a lot higher. Roderick says he hasn't spoken to Bon Jovi directly, but is frustrated that the restaurant opened in the area, which has already been struggling with its homelessness population. Per NewJersey.com, the municipality does not have a licensed shelter, and last year residents shot down a proposal to build a facility on the property of a local church. So basically, this John Bon Jovi restaurant is attracting everybody. What do they say about the road to hell paved with good intentions? Look, John Bon Jovi's a good guy. I disagree with him politically. But this is a guy, he saved somebody's life in the middle of filming a music video a few months back. A guy was about to jump off a bridge and John Bon Jovi got him. Also, something else, Bon Jovi, you've seen him in the restaurant washing dishes. And it's not just for photo ops. He's caught in the background of other people's pictures, or they take a picture going, I just saw John Bon Jovi through the door of the kitchen of the restaurant. He puts his money where his mouth is. He puts his time where his mouth is. But unfortunately, this is the issue where you are now enabling homelessness, emboldening homelessness, incentivizing homelessness. The mayor said, we wound up with dozens and dozens of people being dropped off downtown every single day at the library, where a mom should feel comfortable walking into the library with her daughter and get a book. You shouldn't have to walk through gangs of 24 intoxicated or mentally ill homeless individuals, and that's the real issue here. He said he noted that several police and EMS calls from the library in recent weeks, which means those calls have been going up. This isn't something specific to Seattle or King County or Washington. When you bring the homeless to your area, you bring the homeless problems with them. And nobody actually wants to treat them because you've got the people on the left going, oh, they're just down on their luck. Well, if they have true mental health problems and they are a danger to society, you need to institutionalize a person or you need to treat a person. Can they be treated or not? Can you keep the community safe from them? And by the way, them safe from themselves also. The guy randomly screaming down on street corners and all the other stuff we see around here, not only is that not safe for the community, it's not safe for the person either. Compassion is not leaving that person on the street. You need to get them into treatment. If you just give them meals, you are incentivizing the problem because they always know where to get 3 hot meals every single day. In a statement to the New York Post, Bon Jovi and his wife, who run the nonprofit, said they are committed to ending homelessness through real solutions. We are not here just to move people around or force them into shadows. Our foundation has built nearly 1,000 units of affordable and supportive housing. Through our Soul Kitchen, we connect people to resources and services, whether they need employment, mental health support, or housing. We try to remove the barriers that are keeping them from thriving, not just surviving. Great statement. There's one little problem. You opened your restaurant in a city with no resources. The city has no resources, and that's where you put the restaurant. If you said we're putting it here and we're building a shelter next to it and we're doing all this other stuff, fine, you have an argument. But instead, you have become a magnet for the mentally ill, for the drug addicts, and for the homeless in Toms River, New Jersey. Got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. Donald Trump had an amazing speech last night. Absolutely amazing speech. And there was an incredible moment I want to tell you about, unscripted, that happened during the speech. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you want another way to see this beautiful face and this receding hairline, check out the live video stream we have of the show every single weekday over on Rumble, YouTube, X, and of course over on Facebook. Yet another way to enjoy the Ari Hoffman Show. Tucker Carlson has been going off the rails for a long time now and putting out some really, really odd takes. He was talking about America putting boots on the ground with Iran in reference to tariffs and stuff. It didn't make any sense. It really didn't make any sense. More and more, I'm kind of understanding why Fox did what it did. You may get mad at me for saying that, but he has some odd takes. And his show, by the way, one of the number one backers is a guy from Qatar. He says a lot of things that are in their narrative. He posts a lot of those things on social media. It's a little nuts. So Donald Trump, I don't think he was doing this to address Tucker Carlson, but he was getting a lot of questions about Iran and what's going to happen with Iran if they don't make a deal, if they don't come to the table with the U.S. Now, the latest reports say, remember what was it, 2 days ago? Donald Trump said that he was going to have a summit with Iran. They were going to have direct negotiations with Iran on Saturday. Iran has actually confirmed that. Now, Iran cannot be trusted. Do they bail at the last minute? Is this something that goes forward? If they do bail at the last minute, what is Donald Trump going to do? Donald Trump said something very, very interesting in the Oval Office. I didn't rip the clip because it's kind of long. But what he did say was, he said he's basically going to take the gloves off Israel and let Israel do what Israel wants to do. They're going to lead the attack. Israel's pretty good at taking out nuclear reactors. There's a reason Saddam Hussein didn't have one. Is because Israel bombed the Osirak nuclear reactor in 1980. Israel's pretty good at taking out its enemies. Let's take a look, shall we? You had a 7-front war. How's Hamas doing? They're all hiding in their caves right now. How's Hezbollah doing? They're all missing appendages because of Operation Grim Beaper. How's Syria doing? Oh, right. Bashar al-Assad is completely gone right now. So let's be real about this. Israel can handle the situation. So him saying, I'm going to take the gloves off Israel, by the way, that's the biggest threat you can do. What happens? Iran will think to itself, oh, it's only a matter of time till the American public rejects whatever the U.S. is doing, and they'll say, oh, we don't want to be spending money there, America first. And meanwhile, Israel, what does Israel do? These are the songs they make in bomb shelters when Iran is launching rockets at them.
Bomb, 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 Iran.
Yeah, exactly. So we know how this is going to end. There's literally a video of people making that in bomb shelters in Israel when Iran was bombing them around this time last year. So there was a funny moment today because Mike Huckabee was confirmed as U.S.'s ambassador to Israel. Donald Trump was asked about this in the Oval Office today, and we sometimes forget we have a stand-up comedian as president of the United States.
I had people right in this office, this beautiful Oval Office.
Wait, that's not the clip. Hang on. Here's the clip right here.
Sir, so the Senate confirmed Governor Huckabee to be your next ambassador to Israel earlier today. That's his commission as ambassador. And then we also have a transmittal letter to the president of Israel requesting that he accept Ambassador Huckabee's credentials.
He's going to be fantastic. He's going to bring home the bacon. Even though bacon isn't too big in Israel.
It's just the third letter.
I had to clear that up.
I thought that was pretty good while he's signing his commission to be ambassador to Israel. That's pretty awesome. I thought that was a lot of fun. And he also said, yeah, we're going to take out Iran. We're not going to put up with this nonsense anymore. We're going to take the gloves off Israel. Now, last night, Donald Trump was speaking at the NRCC. The National Republican Congressional Committee had a big event last night. And Donald Trump, of course, is the keynote speaker, and he's got the stage all to himself. And I wish I could find the clip. I saw it last night. I didn't save it at the time. But it was fascinating what happened in the middle of a speech, because Donald Trump goes off script all the time. In the middle of a speech, he starts talking about the hostages. And they were in the room, and he knew they were in the room. But the reason I don't think this thing was planned, I will make clear in a second. He starts talking about the hostages, and then he invites them on stage. Now, he has done this before, and the hostages, one of them was Keith Siegel, who's been in the Oval Office, who we've spoken to before. But what was fascinating was this clearly was not scripted, because the hostages were in the crowd. The former hostages were in the crowd. And they had to climb onto the stage. You know how when there's a staircase, you take the staircase up? It was clear they didn't want anybody getting on this stage, and this was not a scripted moment. So they had to do that thing where you put your knee up and then climb up on the stage, and they're in nice formal wear. They're doing that. But he invited them up on the stage in the middle of his remarks. And this is what American hostage for. Invited them up on the stage in the middle. Hostage, former American hostage, Keith Siegel said.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Trump. I'm here, and I'm alive. President Trump, you saved my life. You saved the life of 33 hostages that because of your efforts, and you're setting the hostage crisis at the high priority of what you're doing among all of the enormous issues and things that you're dealing with since you came into your position as President of the United States. You set the hostage crisis at the highest priority. You got 33 of us home alive.
And I got to say, he went on to say how he wants to bring the rest of the hostages home and asked President Trump to bring the rest of the hostages home. But it was really an amazing moment. Here's the most powerful person in the world, and he's saying, I want to give voice to these guys. Donald Trump has become the biggest advocate. He was beforehand, but now he has been since he met them in person. They told him the story. And I'm reminded of a story. And this was one of the first people to escape Nazi Germany, came to the U.S., begged FDR to save the Jews, telling them what was going on during the Holocaust. And FDR did nothing. FDR did literally nothing. He was given the opportunity to bomb the railroad tracks going to Auschwitz multiple times. He did nothing. Donald Trump's the complete opposite. He heard what was going on. He was working on it beforehand, and now he's even more determined to do it. He's doing whatever he can to bring those hostages home. It's still mind-boggling to me how many Jews or Democrats claiming something good about FDR. There's nothing good about FDR. There was nothing he did that was good for the Jews. USS St. Louis mean anything to anybody? Anybody know anything about those? Yeah, exactly. Or just the St. Louis? Any of those ships? You know anything about that? So, this is a guy who does what he says and follows through on what he says. And it's really a very, very powerful moment he had last night at the NRCC. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. The first one comes from the White House official Twitter account. They put up some pictures. Remember how some people on the left were freaking out that Andrew Jackson's tree, the one that he planted, was going to be cut down? Guys, trees die eventually. There's a tree I saw on my last trip to Israel. This tree is at a location that some people think is where Jacob had his dream with the ladders. The tree is over 1,000 years old. It doesn't look good. It looks like it's a tree that's over 1,000 years old. I don't even know if it's still alive or just standing there. Trees die. It's what happens. You can't keep them alive forever. They are living beings. They have an expiration date. If there's a cell in a tree that keeps them alive forever, I think we'd have figured out how to use it for ourselves, or at least we're working on it right now. So what happens? He planted a new descendant sapling of the historic Jackson magnolia. What's funny to me is they planted this tree and they called it a magnolia, which I thought was pretty clever and pretty funny. Reminded me of our friends over at Kirkland White House. They're the ones that have the MAGA flower bed in front of their house where people try to vandalize it all the time and they get them on camera. I don't think people really vandalize it anymore. They always do the big displays for the holidays and such. It just reminded me of that one. So POTUS said we now have a beautiful tree now in the White House, a beautiful new tree. They said, the White House says we're committed to stewardship and preservation of its historic grounds. And by the way, that's what you do. You take a sapling, you plant a new tree using the old tree. It's fine. It's fine. Mike looks like he wants to say something.
I don't know that it's so fine though, because I'm reminded of an iconic ballad of a fallen tree.
Such a lack of life and sound. All that's left is bare, muddy ground. A magnificent tree was murdered. The mighty dollar cut it down. There's a hole in the sky where the tree once was. Somebody's making money. Stand up. There's a hole in the sky where the tree once was. Somebody's making.
Yeah. The tree people. Don't tell the tree people that Donald Trump cut down a tree. You murderer. You murdered the tree. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, in other news, Mike found this story. This is out of Las Vegas. 7 tigers were seized from a private residence, leading to the arrest of Carl Mitchell, the owner of Big Cats Entertainment, for resisting arrest. Is this a new Tiger King situation going on here? Mitchell claims to have rescued 6 of the tigers from Joe Exotic, the infamous figure from Tiger King. Said he loves his animals and believes he has the right to keep them at his home, despite allegations from authorities. By the way, this is all Joe Exotic's fault. There are people who actually take care of their animals. I'm not saying this dude is one of them, but look at the mess he created because of that Netflix show. Nye County Sheriff Joe McGill said the investigation into Mitchell began several months ago. Mr. Mitchell was being evicted from the property, and the owner of the property was not being allowed onto the property to inspect. We have known for several years he had big cats on the property. For the last 2 years, he has been in violation because he has no permits for those cats. Did he feed an inspector to the cats? Whatever happened to that woman, Carol Baskin? Whatever happened to her husband? Didn't Joe Exotic say she fed him to the cats? A lot of questions. Sheriff McGill added that the community was aware of Mitchell's tigers. Said we have received information over the years that has been seen walking the tigers loose around the property, off the property, in the desert. There have been social media posts from him with people interacting with the cats, which is also in violation. Lucky nobody got eaten by one of those suckers. I saw The Hangover. I saw what happens when you take the tigers around Las Vegas. In an exclusive jailhouse interview with News 3 following his arrest, Mitchell defended his actions, saying the animals did not deserve to be snatched up, knocked out with drugs, shipped across the country when they were happy and content where they had lived for more than 10 years. I'm 100% disabled veteran with PTSD. The VA and my doctors have approved the tigers to work as support animals. This whole story's a little bonkers to me. Can you imagine going on a plane? This is my support tiger. I'm going to put him right here at my feet. Don't worry, he'll be fine. He'll be perfectly fine down there. It'll be fine. Story's entertaining. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue. downtown Seattle, Leschi and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, plus the Little Red Book of Retirement. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we are giving away 4 tickets to Motorsport Mayhem Monster Truck Insanity Next Level Tour at the Washington State Fair on April 19th. Get ready for an adrenaline-fueled weekend of high-octane action. Experience 3 days of extreme motorsport excitement in the Umpqua Bank Grandstand. Get your tickets now at thefair.com. That's thefair.com. And if you come down on this Friday, you actually get to see me. I'm going to be down at the fair on Friday. We'll make sure to put out all the times as soon as we have it all firmed up, but I will be at the fair on Friday, and I would love to see you there. It's going to be my first time at the spring fair. I'm always there for the fall fair, but it's going to be my first time at the spring fair, so I'm really, really excited. If you want to be excited to win these fantabulous prizes, all you have to do is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement, and 4 tickets to Motorsport Mayhem Monster Truck Insanity Next Level Tour at the Washington State Fair on April 19th. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. That's going to do it for us today. Fear not, we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.